Push your tush and put it on the table. Welcome to another edition. It is kid-friendly, I promise, of Thinking Out Loud. Happy annual meeting to you and yours back in the home office in Southern California after 2 days in humid Palm Beach, Florida. My name is Andrew Siciliano. You heard Sam Betesh laughing in the background as well. The annual meeting is over. Don't call it the owners' meeting. It is the annual meeting. The owners are there, as are the head coaches, the GMs, the major executives, all the TV executives, many members of the media, yours truly, one of them there as well. But it is not the owners' meeting. It is the annual meeting. And when they get back together in May in Minneapolis on the 20th and 21st of that month to discuss the Tush Push on the table, that is the spring meeting. So you know. Regardless, semantics. The Tush Push lives to see another day. But Sam Betesh, I'm not going to say it's over, but the sun is setting where the sun doesn't shine, and I think it could be done.
I felt differently. Is it okay to say that I felt different when I first heard the word table? Sounded like good news for that play, for the future of that play. It was Goodell speaking that shed, I think, the light that you are now shining on the tush. The idea, and this did not come up. It's as if the owners, nobody else was really speaking to this part of it, which was that there used to be a rule that would have made this play obsolete, right? There used to be a rule about not pushing a player. And then everyone was talking about health, which I think muddied this thing up because I don't think there's a ton of data in regards to the health argument. I know we'll get into this, but regardless, yes, I'm happy to see it live another month. I'd say, I mean, as an Eagles apologist, yes, obviously the play has done well for that team. Certainly. But I know there is an argument on the other side. I'm happy to hear that. But overall, I think it was, is it the Panthers who said basically it's our job? No, I think it was the Falcons who said it's our job to stop it. And so I'm not going. Yeah. Like, you know, yes. So I'm probably more in favor of just saying, hey, everyone try it. And then those that can't actually do it themselves, learn to stop it. Yeah, of course, that's the competitive nature of this. But maybe there's something to the old rule that used to be there. Maybe.
Listen, here's what happens. When you table something, it means you don't have the votes. You're going to try to whip the votes between now and the next meeting, and then maybe you will have the votes then. It was right down the middle. It was 16-16. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't necessarily mean that A, you're going to get the votes, or B, the commissioner is going to try to want to get the votes where you push and you push. And that has nothing to do with the actual play, and then you eventually get the votes. It comes down to a couple of things. Number one, some people think it looks just like a rugby play, and they're right. It looks like a rugby play. It is not the football that we grew up watching. Previous to 2004, you simply could not carry or push or pull a ball carrier. You couldn't do it. And two things. Number one, the Packers wrote the rule in a way that could not be passed. You couldn't, I'll read it to you. The way the Packers wrote it, you could not, restricting any offensive player from, quote, immediately at the snap, push or throw his body against a teammate who is lined up directly behind the snapper and receive the snap to aid in an attempt to gain yardage. First of all, immediately is subjective. So the immediately kind of threw the whole thing into turmoil, the way it was initially crafted. The other thing here as well is that the rule has to be applicable anywhere on the field. So let's say Jalen Hurts hits Devontae Smith for a little 10-yard hitch in front of the sideline, and the DB runs up on him, and he grabs him, and he starts pushing and carrying him backwards. Well, why doesn't the defensive player get the same benefit as, say, Dallas Goedert pushing Jalen Hurts when they have the football? Why must that play be whistled dead when offensively, it isn't Wessel dead when you have the stalemate and it becomes a scrum, and all of a sudden they're pushing, and you're carrying and you're pushing the guy across the line of scrimmage. But we're going to blow it dead if the DB picks up Devontae Smith and carries him back 5 yards. He's not going to get the benefit of the 5 yards he carried him. No, because it was blown dead when forward progress. So there's got to be some conformity here, number one. And while you're right, they don't have the data. And pressed, Rich McKay, Troy Vincent, Roger Goodell all said today, hey, we don't have a lot of data proving the injuries. Chris Jones got injured, obviously, in the Super Bowl. But just it doesn't necessarily pass the eye test, paraphrasing here. And we do think that there will be increased injuries if this play is allowed to continue and it becomes used more broadly.
Now, I'll stand with my original opinion on this, which is to say it is not a football play. I think is a little much. I think
it isn't a little much. It does. I said it doesn't look like a football.
That's fine, but football is lined against line, right? Yes.
Like
okay. Is it yes? But is rugby close enough to football? I mean, this is an offensive line and a defensive line going up against one another.
We're not playing rugby.
Fine, but to me, it looks like a It looks like a football play. It looks like a football play because you've got men pushing against men, and Levi in the background yelling loudly for this play as well. This is a football play because this is an offensive line versus defense of strength on strength, which football at its core really truly is. So that's why it feels like a football play. That's why to me it will always be that. And maybe I could also say the Eagles went to a Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl with this play. And if it were to go away, you could still say that certainly they got something out of it.
They won the Super Bowl with many other plays.
Yes. Okay. Yes. But in the totality of it, okay, I stand by what Sirianni said, which is, of course, he hopes to get votes from Gannon, Steichen, and Kellen Moore based on the fact that they largely are head coaches due to the success that this team had while this play was a huge piece of their offense. So that, yes, those votes I think won't go anywhere. I am shocked at one vote, which is Buffalo seems to use this play. The Bills use a version of this play or try to with Josh Allen more than any other team. So I'm surprised to see McDermott against this play because of the Bills offense, the way that they try to use leverage with Josh Allen in this way. And of course, he's one of very few quarterbacks that has that size advantage where he can run it that way. Number two, what Goodell said is much more of an opportunity to change this than the way you mentioned the Packers wrote it and the idea that this is about health. If it's about carrying somebody, yes. If it's about health, we haven't seen that. In fact, more teams have been injured trying to run it themselves, hurting themselves running the play, than the opposition has been hurt with this play. And not to say that one is better than the other, but there's not a ton of injuries being sustained during this play. And if you look closely, I still think that Philadelphia would figure out a way, or that a team could figure out a way to run this that does not require the push at all, because there's actually
you don't need a push. You just run a quarterback sneak.
Exactly. There's a surge. There is. There's a collapsing of the line that you can see in that play before Hurts gets Goddard or anyone else behind him. You can see him collapsing into a crease that has been created by that offensive line. So I'm sure if this went that way, Sirianni would make it his own personal vendetta to come up with an ugly play that was still successful, that was within the rules. That would be my guess on that.
I don't say it's dead. I'm not going to guarantee that it's dead at all. I just feel the tide turning, and I think there's a chance, and a strong chance, that come May, it goes away. And then, it's up to every head coach to innovate. Not only Nick Sirianni, but every head coach to innovate. This league is about innovation. Sports is about innovation. It's about making the bat look like the wiffle ball bat that Levi uses in the backyard and just claim, oh, no, a guy from M.I.T. did it, so it must be legal. Like, hey, the Yankees play in a Little League park, so let's use Little League bats. That's great. And also, Nestor Cortez was tipping pitches clearly on Saturday, and it had nothing to do with the bat. Hey, remember the guy that used to pitch for us for all those years? He's coming to town. We know what he's throwing all the time, by the way, right? We know how he holds his glove, and he's throwing slop anyway. So let's hit home runs. And then the world will claim it's the bat. It's innovation.
Can I just say that I'm so happy that you brought that up at all? I thought for a moment we may not bring up the torpedo.
I only have so much time in my day.
I only knew that you would have at least a shred of an opinion based on who had done it and how it happened.
Cheaters who cheat. The Yankees have for a generation been cheating cheaters who cheat. Yes. So it is okay. I don't know that this is cheating. I give them credit. They have innovated. It will be disallowed eventually.
Or they should go one of two ways. Either every team in the league should have a series of these bats, a number of these bats to use, and every team should be allowed to use them, or nobody. That I see it very simply.
Every team is allowed to use them.
Yeah. So I think at this point, every team should just, starting with Milwaukee, the Brewers should be first up to say, yeah, we'd like those bats considering what happened on Saturday and Sunday. But yeah, every team in the league should use these bats. Congrats to M.I.T. Although I also was surprised that M.I.T. was making the bats for the Yankees and not the Red Sox. Considering
M.I.T. is not making bats for anybody. Then a coach.
Yes.
A coach who has a degree from MIT. MIT is not making bats. Okay? Not. And all these things can be true. The Yankees use weird bats, and Austin Wells' leadoff homer against and off Nestor Cortez on Saturday was only a home run at Yankee Stadium. That is not a Andrew doesn't like Yankee Stadium. That's actually there's a Twitter handle that will tell you home run in 28 of 30 parks, or home run in 17 of 30 parks, or home run in every park. Austin Wells' home run was a home run in 1 of 30 parks. 1. The other 29, it might have been a single in front of the right fielder. Charging glove. I'm just faking. Okay, there. I get it on one hop. Okay. Austin Wells hit a home run that would not have been out of Williamsport. Really.
Although maybe where the A's play, right? Where do the A's play, by the way?
They play in Sacramento.
Yeah, I guess.
Yes. Which is the state capital. Okay. So that's one thing that was tabled. The other thing that was tabled is the discussion. I'm sorry. Well, Gabe Arias. Why is Gabe Arias playing second base? Good God. I don't care if Brito had a bad spring. Why is he playing second base? I'm watching a game as we do this. Come on. Anyway. So the playoff changing and seeding proposal. I have said, and I've said it quite strongly, loudly, that I don't think there's any way in heck the NFL is going to reseed the playoffs. In other words, as it stands now, the 4 division winners guaranteed a home game to open up the postseason. You know that. And that's why the Vikings had to play at the Rams, but in Arizona. That's why the Chargers had to play in Houston, right? Even though the Chargers had a better record than the Texans, the Vikings had a better record than the Rams, but the Rams and the Texans won their divisions, and therefore they are afforded the home game in the opening round, in the wild card round. I've said forever that's never going to change. The owners, the commissioner have all said there is value in winning your division. Sean McVay said it again today. Mike Tomlin said it yesterday. Most of the coaches do agree. However, when something gets tabled, it means you might get the votes at the next meeting, as I just said. And this one got tabled. And here's the way I read the room. It's not going to likely change this year. I don't think it's going to change. However, when we get to an 18-game season, and buckle up, Buttercup, we are going to get to an 18-game season, likely not till 28 or 29, that is when we likely see this change made. And I do think that change is going to be made for multiple reasons. Number one, well, you don't want the optics of a team with a sub-500 record winning the division and hosting a home game. It's happened before, notably, say, the Beastquake game when the Seahawks had a sub-500 record winning the NFC West, and they beat Drew Brees and the Saints in Seattle. Obviously, we've seen those situations. You want to avoid that. They've talked about, well, maybe That's the one outlier. We keep it as it is, but we say if you have a sub 500 record and you win the division, then you lose that right to the home game. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to change because as the season gets longer, they need incentive for teams that have clearly found themselves leading their division and can put the brakes on down the stretch. They need incentive to keep those teams playing meaningful games. And when you consider how many, as we call them, standalone games there are now in December, NFL Network Saturday tripleheader, Black Friday game, other Saturday games in December, week 18. Actually, that's January. There are so many standalone games now. You need the inventory. You can't, as the league did this year, really struggle to make certain that you can put good games in those standalone slots. This past year, we had for the very first time in the second year of the league's ability to make this move, a Thursday night game flexed out. Browns-Bengals week 16 flexed out for Chargers and Broncos. The rule is in place. They finally used the rule. The rule has now been locked in, changed from 28 to 21 days notice. That happened this week. When you see rules like that go in, and when you see this possibility floated, remember, you need the inventory of good games for standalone windows late in the year. And that, to me, is the reason that this has a chance. Not going to happen this year. It could, but I'd really be stunned. I think it's going to happen in about 4 years.
As I mentioned about a month ago, not a month ago, a couple of weeks ago when we were discussing this the first time, it was more about Houston's season than Minnesota's. This rule. That's how in other words, Houston played a couple games. Even the game against Kansas City meant a lot less to Houston at that time than it did to Kansas City based on Houston going to win the division, not playing. They were not playing for the 1 seed at that point, and Houston was fairly locked up in the division at that point. And so that game, which is this marquee matchup of Chiefs and Texans, had a little less luster and could have had more if Houston was really in a race against the Chargers for seeding in a potential playoff game. And that's how I saw it then. Although I still think there are a number of teams that see themselves in the Minnesota situation. You know, Washington could see themselves in a situation next season when perhaps they don't win the NFC East, but win 13 games and then would find themselves going on the road to play a 10-win division winner. You don't think
13 is going to win the NFC East?
If it didn't, let's say it was 14 to 13. That, in other words, that what I'm saying is in that situation where the NFC North had this elite Detroit and Minnesota season, in a season that could have an elite Baltimore and Cleveland finish, Baltimore and Pittsburgh finish. I mean, many divisions have this come down to the wire. And when you see that second place team, the wild swing of what week 18 was for Detroit and Minnesota, to have the 1 and 5 seed at play in the same game in week 18. I loved it because the stakes were high, but was it ultimately unfair in the end?
No, you can't say, wow, what an amazing setup, what an amazing game. And oh, by the way, unfair. If you lose, oh, wow, you really got screwed. No, you didn't.
And Minnesota also, look, Minnesota likely loses that game no matter where it's played against the Rams, the way it played out, right?
You can't say that this is such a great game and then say that, oh, but the loser's really getting the short end of it. You can't have it both ways.
You're right. But do we see anything in what quote unquote happened to Minnesota? I mean, it's not like the Rams. I mean, no one thought the Rams snuck into the playoffs. The NFC West was competitive down to the wire all season. At some point, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, or the Rams could have won that division. The Niners obviously had the injuries they did, but
I don't have any sympathy for those teams. I really
okay. You just say, win your division, or sorry, you have nothing to say.
Division. There's a reason there was Hard Knocks AFC North, right? People say, make it like the NBA. You're not going to go see whatever their Hard Knocks
would be. Yeah.
Hard Knocks. NBA Southeastern Division.
Well, no.
Tune in this week when the Orlando Magic have a tough back-to-back against the Charlotte Hornets. Are they in the same division?
I was thinking Charlotte. I was thinking no. That would be a hilarious game show.
You can't put so much on these division games, right? These 6 division game. You don't see division games sent internationally International product's a big deal. But because the owners, when given the choice, hey, we're going to send you overseas. Okay, great. But I'm protecting my division games. I got to get these games at home.
But still winning. I mean, look, winning the division still gives you a playoff berth. So that's still at play, obviously.
Yes, of course it does.
And that's, I mean, obviously that, taking that away would be ridiculous. I also think, the idea of writing in the language about being a sub 500 division winner seems a little convoluted also.
No, what they're trying to do, it is convoluted, but they're trying to find a solution because there isn't necessarily a push to do this.
Okay,
but
so
the way I'm told is that when they actually got in the room and talked it through, there were some interesting points to be made about late season competitive.
Yeah, again, the Houston thing, the Houston story would be that that's how I see it basically. But I mean, I guess I did in the end feel a little bad for Minnesota considering what a special season they had, regular season that is.
Don't give up 9 sacks in the playoff game. They gave up 9 sacks. Rams whooped them, and I didn't feel bad that they got whooped. I mean, I think the Rams would have whooped them. Maybe it's a bit of a closer game if you have everyone doing this in the stands in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it would have been. But I'm telling you, there is a chance. I don't think it gets through this year. I do think it gets through by the time we get to 18 games, eventually when that will happen. As for late season inventory, it was announced that it's going to be a triple header this year on Christmas. Christmas is back on Netflix. Christmas is a Thursday this year. It's going to go Netflix, early, middle, and then the late game, because it's Thursday, is going to be Amazon. So it is streaming top to bottom, Netflix, Amazon, coming up as Santa Claus slides down your chimney this year. There's a lot of other news. I mean, we could, because you get the coaches talking, we could dissect, and the GMs do as well, not necessarily at a breakfast and organized, but you could do an entire hour on every single one of these teams because you have great headlines, off-season stuff for every one of these teams this week. Let's focus, if we could, on the Steelers. From talking to Pittsburgh people there are varying levels of patience in the building when it comes to waiting for Aaron Rodgers, not waiting for Guffman, although Christopher Guest would have a field day with this one, with the Pittsburgh fan base and everyone else in that building. Mike Tomlin didn't want to push, doesn't want to put a timeline on it. Mr. Rooney today said that he's positive, like he thinks he has positive feelings. He thinks it could happen. It will happen, he thinks, and doesn't want to put a timetable on it. They don't have infinite patience. They don't. But I will say right now, it is a pretty significant piece to the offseason picture for the entire league. Not only do the Steelers need a quarterback, they have Mason Rudolph. Okay. Don't forget Skylar Thompson. He's there as well. They need an answer for quarterback. If it is not Aaron Rodgers, then at 21, they are very much in the quarterback business. They have to be. And it really does change the draft. Because if you believe that Cam Ward goes second, and I do, and if you believe that Shedeur Sanders could slide, and I do, then is he there at 21, Shedeur Sanders? If he is gone, if he's maybe a Saint or somebody else, do the Steelers then take QB3? If they have Aaron Rodgers, they're not taking a quarterback in the first round. I don't believe they will. And then is there a race or a push to get whomever you are into the bottom of the first round to get QB3 to get the 5th year, much like the Ravens did in 2018? Do the Steelers need a quarterback at 21 is a huge storyline in this draft, which is 23 days away as we sit here this evening, Tuesday night. Do they need a quarterback at 21? And Aaron Rodgers right now is the determining factor. He was out here in Los Angeles throwing passes with DK Metcalf at UCLA. People think that's a big deal. Listen, they both have offseason homes here, number one. Number two, UCLA is home to maybe the best offseason NBA pickup game every summer. So why can't it be home to these guys as well? Number three, it sure looked like somebody brought a professional photographer for those pictures. So you clearly wanted people to see it. Tip of the cap to my buddy Mike Garafolo, who had the story first. Those look like some really well done artsy photos of you guys throwing the football around. It was for show, as everything is in the offseason. It was for show. Maybe that was Aaron's way of sending a very subtle message, although it wasn't subtle. Yes, I will be your guy.
What about Kirk Cousins? I know there was an interesting story about Cousins meeting with ownership and having a long conversation where Arthur Blank, right? Yep. Arthur Blank was taking notes and they discussed the future. I guess this is a two-part question. What about Cousins in Pittsburgh, and which quarterback is more wins in your mind? I feel like Cousins is a path to 9 wins more so than Aaron Rodgers. And I don't know that
I would see it that way. I mean, they've already met with Rodgers. Sure, could Cousins be a late entry in this? Of course. But Cousins, excuse me, I can tell you, Kirk Cousins doesn't want to get traded before the draft.
Okay. Right, because he doesn't want the same situation, right? He doesn't want to sit there and get Penix drafted again.
He doesn't want the same situation. So, yeah, I also think that it would be a different situation for the Steelers. That if you were to sign Rodgers, you don't go quarterback at 21. If you were to sign Cousins, might you still go quarterback at 21? Kirk would like clarity. I can tell you that.
Well, Rodgers would still be right. Rodgers, I imagine would be pretty, perturbed if that were to happen as well.
If Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh, the Browns are really the only job left.
Okay.
And clarity or no clarity, this would be your only destination. So it's not a take it or leave it. It's a, we can't promise you anything, but hey, playing musical chairs here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers is, I don't know, I thought he was 4th on the list of quarterbacks that were, sort of available in all of this, especially if you throw in Cam Ward, certainly. But Aaron Rodgers was not the top quarterback here when we were talking about, again, when Stafford was a possibility, of course, we didn't think Geno was. Cousins, I probably always had on a list of potentially being out of there. So yes, but I don't know that Rodgers doesn't feel, it doesn't feel like an answer for Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh
is the answer. He right now, unfortunately, or fortunately for them,
the only one.
Is their only answer. Go find me another one.
Yeah, I think Cousins is a better one, but Cousins is going to cost you more. Cousins is going to cost you. That's going to have to be a trade. And
no, you have to give up a draft pick, but Aaron Rodgers is going to cost you more cash.
Yes, cash. Yeah. But giving up the draft pick and Pittsburgh's already without the 2nd round draft pick, right? So
but there's no way. There's no way they would ever. He's not getting traded for 3. I'd be absolutely
no, of course, no, Cousins, of course, no, of course not. But still interesting giving up the draft capital. But I like Cousins more. That's all. I simply think Cousins is a better answer for what Pittsburgh has on the table than Rodgers. I judge too much what we saw from Rodgers last season. That was not. I think Russell Wilson's better than what Rodgers put out there, and I think what Cousins did is better than what Rodgers put out there. And I don't necessarily think that Pittsburgh offensively is such a spectacular season a spectacular situation in comparison to what the Jets had. I don't think it's that much better. I just don't.
Aaron Rodgers, the spotlight is on you, buddy. Kind of, sort of how you like it. How some people like it. It's on you. Aaron Rodgers, Pittsburgh Steeler by draft day. I think it will happen. Can't guarantee it, though. Can't guarantee anything. Have no clue. I can tell you, however, I'm hosting the Rich Eisen Show Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week. Check it out on Roku or Sirius XM satellite radio. We're going to table the torpedo and finish that conversation later. Get into the deep NBA breakdown, the Milwaukee Phoenix game as well on Tuesday night. And has Alexander Ovechkin scored a goal this evening?
I don't think he has. I usually get the alert when that has gotten.
Jose Ramirez just dropped a pop-up, however, and I'm gonna turn this off right
That's
now.
yeah. You don't need to be watching live baseball anymore at this point. It's not going well. The grade
So
8.
that is that. Good to be back from Florida. Florida's just like California, except they have humidity and bugs and thunderstorms and lightning every single day.
By the way, Ovechkin another goal, now 4 shy.
Okay.
So there it is.
It is great to be back at the home office where we have high taxes and earthquakes, but humidity is illegal here. It is illegal. Also, bugs, illegal. We don't have them. No bugs and no humidity. It's awesome. Florida, airports don't work there. They just don't work. And did I mention the bugs and the humidity? Other than that, Sam, thank you. It's been fun.
It's been outstanding.
Thanks for watching, listening. Be sure to subscribe and tell your friends all about this show. It's Thinking Out Loud. It's also on the YouTubes at Siciliano Show. If you're listening on, Spotify or Apple, whatever, you could watch the video version. Just two guys making faces in their basements. So long, everybody.